Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, brothers. Yes, brothers. Who are the brothers? Well, you watched, you know. I don't have to tell you. Brothers. Speaking of brothers, we're all brothers. We were a family last week. We're still brothers and sisters. This weekend, It's All Been Done Radio Hour back live at the Red Herring Theater. Check them out there. We're back live. No more virtual. But, you know, maybe someday, but probably, hopefully not. Get vaccinated. Keep your fingers crossed. Get tickets for the show at Red Herring. It's live. And listen to us talk about brothers on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith, between hairstyles.
Jimmy-Jerome. That was for the Patreon donors there.
Yeah.
Donate to see Keith's hair and the video versions of these episodes.
That's right.
We're here to talk the episode Brothers from The Next Generation's 4th season. First impressions.
Quote, yes. Yeah. I was, I remember like a couple of seasons ago, or whenever the first lore episode was, this is the episode I was referring to, and I thought, oh yeah, I knew what was going to happen. No, this is the one that I always remembered. And there were a lot of things, especially during the setup, that I'd forgotten. But once we got to the parts that I knew them, and I was, kind of excited about that. So well, there are some other things. We'll wait till Jamie gets to this stuff. So
okay.
It started a little on the nose. I was like, is this really going to be about these kids? I know we probably talked about it the last episode that Laura was in here, but in real time, it'd been a while. I ended up being a good episode, but I definitely got into it. I don't know if I loved it, but I definitely liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good episode. I do have complaints about it.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it was good for the character of Data, and the continuity of his story. It definitely felt like the middle chapter of an ongoing story, which it is. So we talk a lot about how Star Trek's very procedural in the 90s, but it strikes me that they do have arcs for Data and for Worf. We check in on them once a season.
Yeah.
So this is Data's check-in this season, and I'm pretty sure it'll be season 5 before we get the next part of his story.
how could you possibly know that?
Because I'm psychic. We start out with, as you mentioned, the kids, Jake and Willie Potts, played by Corey Danziger and Adam Ryan. Adam Ryan, best known for voicing Cody in The Rescuers Down Under, as well as playing Little Willie in this episode. Corey, best known for The Burbs with Tom Hanks, Beethoven, the 80s Beauty and the Beast television series, and this role. Neither one of them have a ton of IMDb credits, but I thought they were serviceable as child actors for the most part. They talked about how it was a joke went wrong, which I don't quite agree with, because, okay, it was a mean practical joke. You
think it turned out great then?
No, that's not what I didn't agree with. The practical joke was pretending he was dead. Jake pretending he was dead to scare Willie. And that's a bad practical joke, but it makes sense as the type of things kids with underdeveloped sense of judgment might do, as thinking it was funny, not realizing that it wasn't. But then Willie wandered off and ate some berries, and that was the problem. And while you could argue that if he hadn't been playing dead, maybe he would have been watching his little brother a little better, I don't feel like that eating the berries was a direct result of the joke.
That was my thing. I was like, how was it his fault his dumb brother just started eating anything out in the woods?
Well, it had been 5 whole minutes since he'd eaten.
Yeah, I thought that was a stretch.
And I guess this was very serious, obviously, because they had to take the Willie to a starbase to be healed. So Riker and Troy were dealing with the discipline. But the part that struck me as odd was these are 2 young children, and apparently they've been left in Riker's care while their parents are on sabbatical, which you think they've got somebody else being the primary caregiver, not Riker. Right. He's a little busy to be watching these 2 little boys.
Right. Why would you have one of the commanders or the head people on his ship do that? And I feel like we're going to talk about this next week too. I know I haven't seen the episode, but just based on the synopsis for next week, I feel like I'm going to have similar problems.
I'm sorry, did they say that he was their direct guardian? I thought he was just like in charge, kind of.
Riker said, we agreed to let you stay while your parents are on sabbatical because you were going to behave.
But I don't think that means that he's watching them directly. I think it was more like
if they have a different guardian, you'd think that guardian would be in on the discipline conversations.
Did the two kids beam down by themselves?
That too.
Apparently.
I mean, that's.
I mean, is this a Katzenjammer Kids reference? I mean, what is the deal with these two brothers? It made me think of.
Riker was the one supposed to be watching them, so he's going to get in trouble with the parents. So to distract, he's trying to blame it on the kid.
Mm.
And, it's a good red herring because I definitely started the episode like, oh my God, is that what this is about? And then obviously we get into other things, data and everything else. But I guess for the sense of, we talk about families living on the Enterprise and all that stuff, it was interesting. But
this felt like a stretch of a story.
Yes.
I mean, all you had to do was cast a parent and be like, hey, they got away from me and the kid ate berries. You don't have to get into this whole thing.
Yeah.
Or the parent could be telling the kid like, hey, you should have watched your brother better so that we could do the brother parallels that they're trying to do.
Exactly.
That is strange. Why wouldn't they do that? I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Pay for another guest star? I mean, they couldn't even pay for somebody to play Dr. Soong. So. We'll get to that in a minute. The budget was really short this week.
Because the budget was spent on the makeup.
Apparently. Data gets this look and he twists his head, and we'll come back to the boys in a long time because now we're going to focus on Data. But he is doing all of this stuff right on the bridge in full view of everyone, and no one's paying the slightest bit of attention, which I bought. I thought that was really cool and awesome. Yeah. He was just.
And he wasn't. That's the great thing is he wasn't acting suspicious other than to like the camera. I mean, if you're there watching his face, you see something's off, but everyone else, he's just, no one's going to think, what's he doing?
Yeah. Data's not your first suspect when things go haywire.
Yeah. I guess we wouldn't think he was having a stroke or something.
I mean, he even gets up when they're evacuating and nods at Picard before he goes back into the. Right. So I do think it's odd he doesn't say anything in that whole sequence, but given what's going on, I think we can forgive the rest of the crew for not noticing that he hasn't spoken.
Right.
Although I do wonder why they evacuated engineering instead of the battle bridge. They have a backup bridge. Why not just go to the backup bridge?
Yeah, that's a very good question. They discussed saucer separation, which, you know what, it still excites me. I know we get it a lot now. We talk about it a lot, but I still get excited.
Don't get too excited because they're never going to separate. They're just going to talk about it.
Hey, 2000, Beyond, right? So we'll get to it eventually because he keeps them from separating, right?
Yes, he cancels the separation.
Yeah. So that's how he kept the bridge out of play.
But he does that well after they've evacuated and they've realized it's Data on the bridge that's hijacked them. Why is Picard's first move when they realize it's Data to hijack them not to shut off his authorization to the computer?
Right. And I wrote Data precautions. It seems like there should be something, because we talked a lot on TOS about Spock being a Superman or superhero, whether it's just the way he's written, all that. But Data kind of is. So I feel like, I know they know where his off switch is, but beyond that.
No, there's a couple things about that. You both said something that I wanted to get to. One, first of all, the authorization thing. I'd have to watch it back with that question in mind, but it feels like Data had already gotten too far by the time that they realized it was him, and I think he was already imitating Picard for the computer. So by that point, it wasn't shutting off Data's access; it was shutting off his own, which he maneuvered around eventually.
So, is that like when the virus is deleting all your files on your computer, and it's too late for you to do anything to stop it?
Well, no, I mean, it's like Data was already several steps ahead of them at every point.
Yeah.
But by the time Data cut off Picard's access, that was after he'd canceled the saucer separation, well after they'd evacuated engineering. I'm saying when you get to engineering, realizes Data didn't come with you and that he's still on the bridge, which they realized pretty quickly. And I'm not complaining about that. But then your first step that he's not answering is cut off his authorization right then, because he took a lot of actions after that they could have prevented.
I guess he could try, yes. But I'm saying that there was a point where it wouldn't have mattered because he wasn't using his own access. He was using Picard's access. So
there was a point, but it happened way later than there was plenty of time for Picard to react before that point. It would have been really funny if Data was listening in on them and Picard starts to give his authorization and then Data talks quicker. Like, computer, remove access for Picard.
But that's so that leads into what Stephen was saying, which I also thought it's one of the few things that were kind of nagging at me as far as flaws. So it just seems if she's got this thing that's been activated, he's like the sleeper command, essentially, and he seems way too proficient at these strategies for like you would expect it to be like a zombie mode kind of thing, rather than maybe it's a simple directive: get here by any means necessary, I guess, but.
That's what it felt like to me.
It's like the whole super data thing that you were saying. The super is just like, how can he possibly?
It felt like he still had access to all his technical knowledge. They just shut off basically his moral functions and ability to make decisions outside of that primary directive.
Yeah. So when he got there, he seemed to be like sleepwalking. Like he's like, what? How did I get here? Sorry. Go ahead.
I thought there were a lot of parallels to the Menagerie when Spock takes
that's my alternate episode.
Ah, there
Menagerie.
You go. He takes the Enterprise, and all that stuff. And I couldn't decide if all the Data's head jerking and all that, maybe it could have tipped me off that something was wrong with him. I feel like I would have, which is fine. It doesn't ruin it. It didn't ruin it at all for me because I was still like, what is going on with him? I don't know. I was just trying to think if it would have been even more like a deeper mystery to me if he'd been more like Spock, just being normal Spock, and all of a sudden he's doing these things and he's had this set up. But I like that, and I also I thought once the kids we got moved on from the kids thing, I thought the pace was really quick, which I think explains why Picard was too slow. I think that helped build the mystery of I'm just trying to follow what's going on here. I can't even, let alone figure out what's wrong with.
You're right that it felt action packed, but we're still several notes away from where I wrote down, man, this is a long sequence where we're following Data being bad, even though we know he's not bad.
Right.
Without any explanation. It felt, while a lot of things happened, it felt like we didn't need that much to happen before we get to the planet.
I thought there were only 10 minutes left in the episode by the time we were
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, my alternate episode, I did write down the Menagerie that I would have rather taken 5 minutes out of this huge block of stuff of Data hijacking the ship, because like we all know he's not really bad and how this is going to end, so we don't need to stay on it so long. And then had some type of dealing with the consequences at the end instead.
Yeah.
Well, this for me, that's a good point. Seeing some sort of ramifications or something, but I don't know. For me, this is like my version of the original movie. TOS-1 essentially with the extended shot of the ship from the outside. I liked the idea of going through these paces. So it wasn't like they were showing, not telling, in my opinion, what it would take to do something like that. They're demonstrating how adept he would have to be to do something like this, all the steps involved in the outmaneuvering. And, I think in a way it kind of demonstrated why Picard would have been, you were saying before, why didn't you just shut off his access immediately? I think that everyone would be thrown for, like, they would not conceive of this as being a possibility. They would still be going, okay, maybe giving him the benefit of the doubt or not. They're almost relying on him to fix the problem. So they needed like a Data to outmaneuver Data, essentially.
I guess I think that was part of my problem with it being such a long sequence too. And I get your point of let's see all the different steps, but it felt sloppy in the way it unfolded. So I think that's part of why I wanted it to be tighter.
Okay. Yeah.
One of my favorite shots, though, comes during this sequence where we're just seeing the empty Jeffries tube and hearing Riker and Worf have a conversation. I really enjoyed that they weren't in the shots. I did have a real problem with Picard referring to Willie as the boy, though, because we all know the boy is Wesley.
Wesley, that's right.
And at best, you call him a boy, not the boy. Come on, Picard, don't cheat on Wesley with Willie.
It's funny. There's a later comment that I was going to make about Willie, and I didn't know the name, so I was actually about to write in the boy, but I couldn't bring myself to do it because I was like, that has to be Wesley, so I had to call him the kid. So,
well, to be fair, Wesley is now the young man instead of the boy. He's graduated. Yeah. It's nice to know April Fools has survived through the 24th century.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and I agree with his assessment about how lame April Fools is, which I've definitely gone through a progression in my life about April Fools, because at one point, I think it was my first wife who said, "How does your family tell April Fools from every other day?" Meaning, that's all you guys do is mess with people. And then at some point, I was just like, and maybe it's the internet age, I don't know what, but I was just like, it's just not any fun anymore. Maybe it's because there's nothing new to do for April Fools or whatever, but yeah. But I thought his assessment was really good. Like, that's not fun. Why would someone do a practical joke?
Why isn't, I think that's some of that's maturity. I can't remember when I outgrew the idea of that even, or just thought about like, why would you do that? But I thought that it felt like he was being dishonest because of his older brother, what he said. It sounded like he was doing something like in retaliation for something else. Was it just because, he's my annoying little brother? Or it sounded like he was saying that he had done something to him too at some point.
I just got the impression it was because he was an annoying little brother, which as an elder brother of 4 younger siblings, I totally understood.
Is this the part where Crusher tells him a joke or riddle or joke or whatever? Or was that later?
Yeah, I loved Crusher telling the joke though.
I wrote, don't quit your day job, but then I also said her bedside demeanor is still fantastic though.
Yeah.
Her bedside manner is still great.
The vaudeville joke?
Yes.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
So back up before that, I was thinking of they made this the B or C story, probably the B story, I guess.
Yeah.
And that scene where Deanna's bringing the older brother to talk to the younger brother, to sickbay, and Beverly just gave Deanna that look, which was supposed to be like, oh boy, these kids. But I interpreted it as, yep, they made us the babysitters for this episode. So there's something to do. So,
I mean, you're not wrong, except it did make sense for their actual professional positions to be the ones. But you're right. Well, Riker's supposed to be responsible. He should be taking care of Jake. They make a comment in engineering as the ship approaches the planet that the only way to tell if they drop out of warp is by looking out the window. And I'm like, really? You're in engineering. You see the warp core, which acts differently when you're at warp. Yeah. You've got all these panels of readouts, even if you're not able to control it. And I think there's mentioned before that they can feel the ship at warp, like it makes a different sound and everything. And they're right in engineering where the sound's coming from. I think they have other methods besides looking out the window.
Well, I have an explanation for that. See, Super Data anticipated all those things, and he made the computer simulate the differences to make up for that, so they couldn't tell.
Well,
interesting.
Okay.
I was completely kidding there, but that's actually kind of...
Oh, I know.
When you say Windows, you mean Windows on the ship, not Windows 937 or whatever will be up there.
No, somebody had a laptop that was running Windows 937, and it was the only thing still working because the computer systems for Mac, so of course they stopped working.
But Internet Explorer still sucked.
It's so easy to be locked out of Mac. That's what Data just locked them out, so they had to get their PCs out.
The Super Data actually used the screensaver on the Windows. That's how so it just looked like they're warp constantly at that point. Hit the little stars going by. But
the toaster with wings flying past. Man, our audience better be old.
I suspect they are somehow. Just a hunch. But
so we get to the planet. There's this really weird old man, Dr. Noonien Singh. We eventually find out. Stopping our clocking around. I think our first hint about who he was and who was playing him should have been when he looks at Data and says, I always love that face. Because apparently Data's, I'm pretty sure what they meant was in his younger days, Noonien Singh looked exactly like Data before he got old and wrinkly.
Yeah.
I would have sworn they had said that before, but of course I could be conflating this with the previous episodes as before. So there was these things that he was saying in this episode that I remembered knowing. And anyway, sorry. So
yeah, Brent Spiner's performance as Noonien Singh is equal parts ridiculous and fun.
This is one of my first brushes with, I guess we should call it nostalgia bias, in the sense that I encountered this young enough where it didn't really occur to me that this was a bad performance necessarily. If I really stopped and thought about it and started analyzing, I'd probably find flaws, but it never really bothered me, and it still didn't this time. So I don't know.
I think bad performance is the wrong word. I'm not saying it was bad, but it wasn't good either. I don't know.
It reminded me of the guy in the episode where he got young. Remember that episode?
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I just, at one point, maybe to the flip that point you made about I've always loved that face. Data says to Soong, you look fine. I was like, does he? Does he look fine? I mean, I wouldn't guess.
No, I think it's Lore that says it.
Oh, you're talking about later on when he was like,
Yeah.
what? You're
But
dying?
Lore's lying, obviously, when he says it.
Maybe that's what it is. Because I was like, I don't think he does look fine. And then I just wrote old people in sci-fi, especially at this time, because we've had so many old people just in TNG where it's like, why do they look like they're 190 rather than just 90?
That fine line, Lore didn't say it convincingly when he said it. He was like,
Really?
"Oh, Father, you look fine. No, you're going to live for a long time." Like, I think he was trying to convince himself as much as... I didn't take it as a sincere line.
I don't know. I mean,
it's sincere as in, I don't know. I think Lore was fooling himself. There was a certain amount of self-inflicted delusion going on there.
Perhaps, but I mean, I think that self-delusion was sincere in the sense that he wanted that to be true.
Sure.
So it felt authentic to me, at least.
I think we need to debate that as we get to the end of the episode. But yes, there were certainly parts of this that I wrote down. Lore really seems to care about Dr. Soong.
I'll hold my other note on that till then.
Yeah. I guess they went back to the Enterprise briefly because my next note, how does the sickbay force field generator get them access to the bridge? Because they're like, oh, we need to take some energy from the sickbay force field generator that's keeping Willie's disease in check to remove the force fields on the bridge. That made absolutely no sense to me from a technical standpoint.
I did not catch that. That was
the only thing they could take the power from to deactivate the force field from the bridge.
I think that's one of those, we've talked about it on here, and I've referenced Star Wars Minute with it, where it's like, we have a peril. Let's add one more peril. It's a hat on a hat. It's like, we don't need this. We don't need this. There's enough peril for both parties. We don't need to add this.
That's ironic too, because that was my first thought when they did the brother storyline, because that's seemed to be there almost the dual purpose of shoving the brother storyline at you, like here's the parallel here, and also adding a sense of peril to the situation, because if it were just any other day, who cares if they take a few hours or a day or two to see what Data's doing. So.
That's a good point.
That part helped. We didn't need the extra peril on top of it. Yeah.
I think where the budget went this episode was decorating Dr. Soong's lab. Man, that place. I mean, dinosaur skeletons and...
Well, the purpose of that is so you could make sure that Geordi would have no doubt as soon as he got there. Look at this place. It's Dr. Soong.
Right. Even though Data wasn't sure it was Dr. Soong. Like, oh, you kind of look like Dr. Soong.
No,
but Geordi knew instantly.
The flare around, that's proof that it's him.
It did seem like cluttered, like he was a hoarder, kind of. I guess we were supposed to get the idea he was an eccentric old man.
And you have to keep in mind that he had to abandon his home to the crystalline entity at one point. So he's had to rebuild his collection from scratch.
That's right.
A couple of decades ago. I think he also spent some time on another planet, which we'll learn about in a future Star Trek series. Because like I said, Data is not done playing different versions of Dr. Soong. I think we're going to see him as Noonien Soong a couple of times, but he also plays Dr. Eric Soong in 3 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, like 100 years before this. And then he played Alton Soong in a few episodes of Star Trek Picard this year. So he will keep playing Soongs, except when we get to Star Trek Picard, he doesn't have to use old age makeup. He's just Dr. Soong.
Oh, God.
In his regular look.
Oh, that's depressing.
I know.
I still think The Rise of Soong is the worst Star Trek movie.
It is. I agree.
Oh, my God.
I agree. It's pretty bad.
They asked Data what his name was at the end of the episode.
This is when Lore enters the story, and whatever you think of Data's performance as Dr. Soong, Brent Spiner creates 3 separate characters in this episode, to the point where it's very easy to forget that these scenes are just 3 Brent Spiners.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Lore Data stuff I loved.
Yes.
I just thought he was great. It's obviously it's fun as an actor to get to do that kind of thing. And obviously he got to really chew it up being Dr. Soong as well. But yeah, I thought the brothers, I'll say the title, it was a convincing relationship. And yeah.
It was, I mean, I really, this is probably my favorite lore episode. I mean, we'll get lore a few more times, but the way lore is played in this episode, where you think he really does care about Dr. Soong, and I think he does. I think there's a level of jealousy with his brother and past grudge that he's holding on to, but I also think he does care very deeply whether Dr. Soong lives or dies, and would much rather he be alive. And Data playing the hapless straight man to lore, because lore is so animated. Data seems more robotic next to lore, and the whole thing where he just keeps repeating, "I'm not less perfect than lore. I'm not less perfect than." I loved it. It was so good.
That's one of my favorite things. That's one of the things that I hadn't, separately from the lead-in, I hadn't remembered that before I got here. But once I got there, I was like, "Oh God, I love that line." The thing I always remember, there's probably a couple reasons for that, but the episode, the part where Lore is singing when he wakes up.
Yeah.
That was something that I always remembered, and I think that was the first time I ever heard the word cadence, or at least heard it used in a sentence back then. So it's kind of a weird thing. So whenever I hear that word, I think of that episode, or this episode. And so the often wrong soon thing.
The very bad poem.
Yes.
He sings
always remember that.
After he swaps with Data, even though we don't see that at all. All we get is that wink, and then the next scene he's swapped, which I appreciated. We don't need to see them fight again.
No,
I believe he snuck up on Data and turned him off. I get it.
Yeah.
I liked that Soong's relationship with the boys too, and how he clearly had a favorite, but that he still very much cared about Lore. And when he kept making excuses for Lore's behavior, like, "Oh, Data, he's had it hard. Don't you? You got to forgive your brother." That felt like a very authentic family relationship and dynamic to me as well.
Yeah.
It's going back for a second, you said something about the believing that he really cared about Soong and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen a lot of villains like that in other properties. Just the idea that no matter what your relationship with your parents, you still have that something there, that little thing of wanting their approval. However much you've convinced yourself you don't need that, you need that sort of validation, and that's why I think it was important. He was about to leave, but yeah, he still needed that something, even if it had took the form of some form of revenge. He had some form of satisfaction, some form of closure, and it really felt like it wasn't his intention to kill him. It just it came out from all the emotion bubbling up, which is interesting in itself. The idea that he already had emotion,
and I'm not sure he really killed him. Like, granted, Dr. Soong's future appearances won't be like he's still alive. They're different, but I think he was already close to death. Maybe this hastened it along a little bit, but he wasn't like dead at the end of the episode.
I was going to say, what did the coroner's report say he died of? I thought he was dead too, and I didn't understand what was he dying of. Did he ever say just being old?
He didn't say what he was dying of. I would assume being old based on his look. When Geordi wanted to take him back to the Enterprise, he basically was like, "I just want to die where I lived," which was fine, but it's not like they put a sheet over him and declared him dead when they left. Like, I definitely thought he probably lived a few more days at least. My assumption of that whole sequence was, I think Geordi scanned him, said, "Hey, you're dying," because he was, and it wasn't the throw that killed him. He's just dying because he was already dying, and he was like, "No, I'm going to stay here and die. I don't want to leave." Yeah,
I maybe had mycocytosis.
We saw the emotion chip, which is a big story point moving forward. Lore got the emotion chip, which is going to make him even crazier and more insane than he already is. And Data, of course, will eventually get the emotion chip in the films. We'll get to that. But the emotion chip is an ongoing prop.
I can't remember who says this, but maybe Soong says emotions might make you more trusting.
Yeah, of Lore. More understanding and trusting of Lore.
Maybe understanding. The trusting part I don't get. I don't think that's going to help at all.
No. I think what he meant was then you might understand Lore's emotions, and maybe that'll make you trust him because you understand them. I don't know.
Yeah, that part I get.
I don't need you to confirm it one way or the other, but I feel like I remember there being more about the emotion chip throughout the series before the movies get there. But also, it's funny to me that when I saw the title of the next episode, I assumed that they were just jumping right into him trying it.
Suddenly human.
I was like, oh yeah, I guess that episode comes up next. So it's serializing. That's great.
Lore already has emotion, so the emotion chip doesn't give him emotion. It makes him crazy.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about Data. I'm saying I would have thought that Data's going to try the chip immediately because the next episode is called.
No, because Lore got away with the chip. Data doesn't have the chip.
Oh, what? Wait.
Soong
I
put
thought he
it
had
in
to-
Lore's head.
I know, but wow. Oh my God. I've missed
Data
that
will
too.
get it back eventually, but he's not getting it
Right.
back now.
Yeah, I'm remembering that he had it. So
Yeah.
I guess I just assumed that they did that kind of well, all's normal at the end of the episode kind of thing. But he just gone with the thumbnail.
Yep.
I guess he's a thumbnail transporter. And
Yes.
I like the way that Soong, that just makes me think of Soong going into each of their mouths to set them back to whatever factory settings. I was like, it's a smart, speaking of budget, it's a smart way to be like, we're just going to have him use this weird screwdriver and do a thing that we can't see what he's doing exactly. And there you go.
so we don't have to show like 1,000 braided cables with lights going through them and
Yeah.
positronic circuitry.
Although I do love it whenever they open up Data's head or his arm or whatever. I always think, especially his head, I think it always looks cool. Again, for early 90s, late 80s technology or effects, I always like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Dr. Soong doesn't lock his door. I mean, it doesn't seem like he has any nearby neighbors, but I would still keep that door locked.
Is he alone on the planet? I mean, they seem to be
It's
doing
not
that.
clear. It's not clear, but I would still keep it locked.
They're doing
Especially
the whole
with as many
homogenous
enemies as
thing.
he's made over his life.
Entire planet, one village. You know.
One
Data
person makes it really
Yeah.
homogenous.
Yeah.
Data asked to say goodbye to Dr. Soong alone. That was interesting. And that, I think, further backs up the fact that there's some level of emotion to him, even though he doesn't have emotion.
That mention that's since you bring that up, I hadn't thought to note that, but Soong's line at the end was very similar to the girl from that planet that he visited. That he was trying to convince everybody to evacuate, understanding that in your own way, this is how you care, and it's almost like that whole. I don't know if it's Pinocchio or something else, maybe no, I'm thinking more like the Wizard of Oz, the whole Tin Woodsman thing. You got a heart all along. We're just giving you this symbolic thing to confirm that you can do this. But
See, I agree with you, Keith, and that's why it feels way too easy for me down the line when they just put the emotion chip in his head and now he's got emotions.
Yeah,
I feel like it would have been better to keep playing out this arc. I feel like they negate the arc down the road.
Yeah.
Was
there a better way to get these two together than hijacking the Enterprise?
I mean, yeah, but Dr. Soong is way too egotistical to worry about a better way. I bought that.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Well, do you mean better way, like as far as story writing goes,
within that universe? How about just be like, hey, Captain, I need to go see. I'm going to go on shore leave or whatever. Something better than hijacking the ship and not telling anybody.
Well, that is more like the storytelling aspect of it, though.
Yeah, I guess. What
the writer chose to do.
Right. Yeah.
I think they. So, all right. So there's this thing when you have a bit that somebody's doing, especially like when I think of like SNL, like Weekend Update or something. I know this seems like a leap, or sometimes when you see a sketch being done and you get to that joke in the sketch and you realize this is probably the reason why this whole sketch was written so they could do this joke.
Yeah.
And it felt like this is. I can't tell which of the two it is. Was the reunion the excuse to do the super data scene, or was the super data scene the excuse to do the reunion? But it probably seems like it's probably the former. We want to do a super data sketch or super data bit. So,
well, it's interesting you say that because this episode was written by Rick Berman, a name that will be familiar to anyone who is knowledgeable about Star Trek in the 90s. He came on board at the start of the Next Generation. He was a network executive or executive producer that was assigned to work on the show, helped them develop TNG. And when Justman stepped down after season 1 and Roddenberry subsequently backed away, Berman basically took over the franchise until the end of Enterprise. He co-created DS9 Voyager and Enterprise. He was in charge of Star Trek from here after Roddenberry. He was basically Gene Roddenberry's successor on Star Trek.
Are you saying that
which has now been replaced in the new iteration with Alex Kurtzman? But
are you saying that it was as a result of this episode, or this was it symbolic of it, or what do you mean?
So
was it just happenstance?
I think Berman was against doing the serial stuff, so I have to think it was he wanted to see Data being cool and thought Data was a popular character. But I thought it was very interesting that this executive wrote this episode. Apparently, he wrote one other episode as well. Because he wasn't a writer. This was just the guy in charge of everything. So
that interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was. I had not realized until today. Maybe I had known this and then forgotten, but it was surprising to me when I read that Rick Berman wrote an episode.
I mean, is this the only episode he wrote?
No, he wrote one other one. He only has 11 He has 11 writing credits on IMDb, but they're mostly story by. So he wrote this one and A Matter of Time, but he has 3 other story by credits for Ensign Row and Unification Part 1 and 2, the Spock episodes for this. And then for DS9 and Voyager, he does have a story by credit for the Voyager series finale, but I assume that's as creator of the show because he's got a story by credit for the DS9 pilot. Again, because I think because he developed the show, he was the creator of these shows, and story by credit for the Voyager pilot. And again, he wrote the finale of, he's got a written by credit for the finale of Enterprise, as well as a couple other Enterprise episodes. I mean, the finale of Enterprise is pretty awful as a Enterprise episode. He and Brandon Braga, another big Trek guy, wrote it. The finale.
Can't wait! I can't wait now already because you said that. I just I don't remember.
Let me put it this way.
I had the same reaction.
The finale of Star Trek Enterprise is a great Next Generation episode. It's a crappy Enterprise episode, and it should not have been the finale of Enterprise. The episode was directed by Rob Bowman, one of our regular directors.
The patting the head, rubbing the belly thing. Dude, I was trying to think the last time I saw somebody doing that. And right now.
If you're on Patreon, I can do it.
And it was funny. I did it as soon as he did it. I did it both hands. And then I was drinking. So by the end of the episode, I couldn't do it.
I find it much harder to rub the head while patting the belly. Try that.
I tried to do that too. And
I don't know if I can do it.
That was harder too.
And I can't whistle, period. So I don't know if I could add whistling to it or not. But I enjoyed him ragging on Data for not being a good whistler.
But I was wondering, I can't whistle. That's I can't completely out.
No, you can even add the tongue end to the Data effect, which I thought was clever in some ways, the digitalization of it.
Dr. Soong's death scene, when he tells Data, everybody dies. Well, almost everybody. I mean, he's strongly implying that Data doesn't die. And yet Data will die. So I found that ironic.
No, it's foreshadowing. They knew it from this point when it was going to happen now.
I think it was very clear they did not expect to kill Data when they wrote that line.
I guess even machines die, right? I mean, my computer is definitely going to die very soon.
I think Data's designed well enough that he would not have died of old age or mechanical breakdown for centuries.
Right.
But that doesn't prevent you from like getting blown up in a starship or something.
Right.
Soong says Data will grieve in his own way. That kind of goes with what we were saying, that he's still going to feel it.
He kind of grieved for Tasha Yar, right?
Yeah. I think so.
The shrine and everything. I mean,
the dinosaur toy. Data took Dr. Soong's dinosaur toys to give to the brothers. That felt like a stretch to connect the stories.
Yeah, I thought so.
I did like the end where they're like, brothers forgive, and then they looked at Data because I get that message, but at the same time, I don't think he needs to be forgiven lore.
Right. I thought it was so on the nose. It was just like, really, guys?
That was my last note, and I had it as all caps. Brothers forgive Data. I just and I noted
they forgive. Are you getting this?
They had the close up on his face, and they did that little extra trill in the music afterward. They drew that scene out for like a couple of extra seconds. They just
but they gave us no reason in this episode why Data should forgive lore.
Right.
So it didn't feel earned.
No.
It made me think of the the Tommy Boy line. Brothers got a hug.
Yes.
Speaking of music, there are some over-the-top stingers in this one. They were some really over-the-top, which then led me to a different thought, which is, we've talked about, obviously, the TOS music is, there are people that know TOS music that have never seen a TOS show. I feel like. Is there music in TNG that you're like, oh, that's TNG music if you heard it somewhere?
I think
I don't know a piece in my head. Sorry.
I was going to say just
so.
the variations on the opening theme they usually do throughout the show. I mean,
Yeah.
even though even though that was derived from the original series, I think that's kind of they have their own version of it that they kind of throw into things.
I feel like there's some musical themes in the next gen films, but not so much in the series.
Yeah, that not memorable. And I don't know if that's like, hey, don't do anything close to the original series music. Although I guess you wouldn't anyway. I mean, they occasionally throw the opening theme, like last week, the family episode, another family episode, and they at the very end with the kid under the tree. But so I guess I could see that. But yeah, and maybe it's of its time because there's not a lot of memorable music around that.
No,
Nevermind hasn't come out yet at this point. So
it was very notable though that this era of Trek, even into Voyager and Enterprise, Trek was like one of the only shows on television still using an orchestra to score it.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
The new shows use an orchestra too, and I feel like it's come back in style for prestige dramas. But
so it still isn't 1991 yet?
I think we're just getting to 91, right? Or I think we're in 90, late 90.
I think we're still 1990.
Yeah. So
we're in the fall of 1990.
No, when I started thinking about what you were saying, I realized that you don't have like the love theme or like the battle theme or things like that are that recurring. And I mean, but as far as feeling like TOS, I mean, sometimes that last season finale, that stinger, it was just just that.
That's true. That's true. My last note was at some point, I think Lore says it, calls him dear brother. I was like, oh, he's so close. So close to the title, but he's so close.
Oh, well, I guess in a sense, Beverly said it,
at the end,
brothers forgive.
Yeah.
Fashion.
Lore
dress is comfy. I think we should all take a page from Lore.
Yes.
Soong dresses crazy, but he is. So those are my only fashion notes. Do you have an alternate episode?
Mine is that, and I don't know how I got here exactly, but is that the kid that she's doing the vaudeville stuff with and everything, whatever his illness is, causes him to mutate into like a big situation, aka Tom Hanks big, and he and Crusher get together.
Oh God!
Which is wrong, I know, but it was wrong when Elizabeth Perkins did it, even though I had no objections at the time. But now, looking back, it's clearly problematic. So that is my alternate episode.
Okay.
Just wait till night. I mean, just wait. Well, we'll see what happens next week.
Wesley annoyance scale of 1 to 10.
I gave him a 2. I can't even tell you why, but I did give him a 2.
Really?
What was he doing?
I didn't find anything he was doing annoying.
I don't have anything specific, but I know he bothered me.
I give him a 1.
Probably a 1. I mean, I think they just consulted him on something in the bridge. I feel like if I could remember exactly what happened or how he said it, I might go higher, but I think it's a 1. The brothers forgive thing, I just thought about that earlier. I mean, it might have been earned in the sense that Soong said something similar to him, or was trying to get that across to him. And Beverly sort of echoing it, whether or not he deserves forgiveness, but it seemed to be like there just to give us that thought face.
One brother let his little brother eat poison berries. The other one tried to murder Dana. That's, same thing.
Yeah. One is another is something I'm surprised you didn't mention because Lore brought up the Packlets.
I missed that.
Yeah, he said that's who rescued him from drifting.
They're very easy to fool. I'm sure Lore had no trouble.
Makes me laugh still. This is the kid line. I put the kid really isn't taking his impending death well. What a baby. Why is he whining about it? Oh, come on, grow up. Yeah, so 17946721476 Charlie 32789777723 Tango 732 Victor 731171888 732476787 64376 Lock. There.
8675309.
I mean, that's good password security now. Most of us don't do that, but he that long.
We should all be using that.
You started out with a really solid Patrick Stewart impression, Keith, that then devolved.
I had to get the speed. I had to get in there.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the long password. Who was your annoyance of the week?
Mine was Soong, Dr.
Dr. Soong.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I kind of would like a follow up on that.
I didn't care. I didn't love it.
I always mix up Dr. Soong's name with Khan because this
Yeah.
is Dr. Noonien Soong and he's Khan Noonien Singh.
Oh,
They're very similar.
that's why you said that earlier. I knew that sounded familiar when you said it. It's like, I know that's not this, but it sounds like it's right. Still wide. That's it.
I always thought their names were way too similar.
But I mean, was it the performance? Was it the character? Steven? I mean, as far as
Maybe a little bit, and just in general, and maybe that's why I talked about he could have come up with a better way to get them there and all that kind of stuff. Maybe I don't want to say it's because he was old, because there's plenty of old people I love, including myself.
Not me. I hate all old people.
But yeah, I think just some of his shtick, and I shouldn't say I give him a 10. He was just the most annoying person, which I guess I could have picked one of the kids, but maybe I was being generous this week to kids.
I thought the kids were authentic kids.
That's true.
So if you found the kids annoying, you might just find kids annoying.
That's
Speaking of which, no, I don't know.
Keith's annoyance is the kids.
I guess. I mean, I'm not sure where I would have.
Which one, Willie or Jake?
It felt more like the situation around it was annoying, and I'm not sure which one I would pick necessarily.
Okay, we'll put you down for both.
Yeah.
I'm going to choose.
I was going to say also for the follow-up for old people. Yeah, I mean, I'm annoyed by them too, and I was just really disappointed when we didn't get the death panels we were supposed to get. So
yeah. I'm going with Riker,
healthcare.
My man, because I really thought he did a terrible job taking care of these two kids that he apparently is responsible for. And then when he gets down to the planet and they find Data, immediately he's like angry at Data, even though he has to know that there's like a logical explanation. It wasn't Data's fault. So yeah, I'm choosing Riker.
fair.
Crush of Star Trek. Anyone want to switch to Soong or Lore?
Sticking with Samantha Egger.
Okay. I am going to stick with Shelby. I wish Dr. Crusher was a choice with that vaudevillian joke there, but,
It was very charming. It's
it
not
was.
hilarious.
Keith, are you staying with Shelby?
Actually, since he's on the table, I'm going to go with the Lore.
Lore is a good one.
Yes. The justification for that, of course, is, I'm not less person than Lore. That line just...
Lore is tempting. He's just so evil. Ranking the episode, I mean, there's only 3 episodes to rank it from. Where do you think this one belongs?
It was okay. Last place.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I think Last Place is acceptable given that the other 2 choices are Family and Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah.
I would put this towards the top of a season, but at this point in the season with 2 really one really fantastic episode, one pretty darn good episode.
Yeah, I guess.
That was one other thing I was going to mention I read earlier was like, this is like in the top 25 on whatever, a couple lists of top Trek episodes. All of Trek. This is in the top 25. I'm like, I don't know about that.
I think it's just because of what it means to the continuity of Lore and Data and Dr. Soong being together. Either of you had a strong argument for putting this above Best of Both Worlds Part 2, I'd entertain it. Although I think it probably belongs slightly below. I definitely think it belongs below Family for sure.
I think it was Rick Berman that I read. He was like, well, we thought, having Brent Spiner play 3 roles would make it a very special episode. And it turned out we were right, because it is a very special episode. And I was like, is it? And then I was like, oh, yeah, I guess everyone does love it. All right, I'm the idiot, but I'm the outlier. But I did like it a lot. I just, in my brain, we've had a lot of Trek to watch. I don't think it's going to be top 25, but.
Well, I mean, what year was that list made? I guess is one of the questions.
Right. That's a good question.
The other thing, I don't think I could make a strong opinion or a strong argument to put it above anything necessarily. I know my personal preference. I love this, and is that there's something that kind of stuck with it or stuck in my head for decades about it, and I'm not sure exactly if I could quantify it all, but just I can see your point of view that it's not that great, but my bias would be to put it above. But
I think I was probably more excited about it as a kid. Definitely saw this one as a kid. So I get what you're saying. Next week, we are going to watch Suddenly Human. On a rescue mission to an alien shipwreck training mission, they discover one of its trainees to be human.
Who has Data's chip?
No. Until the next time, live long.
Forgive your brother and prosper.
Never. I'll never forgive my brother, and I never will. I'll never forgive him for the death of my son.
Wait, what? Is this a reference or something? I don't know.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?